Well, let's move on then to some of the other claims, some of the darker claims about the underground bases, because obviously S4 is an alleged underground base, 4 levels, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that Lear was involved with was the publication of these Dulce papers, and which basically alleged that there's a huge underground facility in the Archuleta Mesa, which is an area of New Mexico, where there's this underground base shared with ETs and humans, and they're doing all kinds of genetic experiments on human beings. There's hybrid beings being grown in vats and all of this sort of stuff. And what's your take on that then, Jed?
Area 51 and S4, yeah, I can believe it. What actually is down there, if you want to move on to Phil Schneider, what he believes is down there, and he's well documented on the internet and on YouTube. He's got the videos out there. I can see, but how deep and we go down.
Phil Schneider was just fill us in on who he was, Jed.
Phil Schneider's a guy who was a geologist, supposedly working for the government on underground bases. You can go and check his background; it's all there. He works on the underground base, supposedly in Area 51, and they did 4 mine holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and his objective was to drill across and. Supposedly came across, they had a problem with the drilling bits, they went down and supposedly came across as grey aliens. He ended up killing 2 of them, and 60-odd people of his compatriots supposedly got killed.
And then Schneider was murdered shortly after giving these lectures.
After giving all the lectures and coming out and giving all the information, he ended up dying of suicide.
And what do you think, Dale? Do you think?
Well,
he did have cancer, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, this is by no means discounting what was said, and I'm sure that the military do have a lot of secret underground bases, and I think that maybe they're not underground for some, secret hellish reason, but I think they're practically underground to basically stop Russian spy satellites from seeing what's going on, because if there's any way of them finding out what America is doing in terms of projects, they'll do it. The only problems that I have with Phil Schneider, and that is that. And this also ties in with anyone revealing that UFOs and ETs are real, and that is that usually if people see a ghost, they're afraid. Now, Phil Schneider, the very first time he sees a UFO, and it goes down this hole and sees an ET, his first reaction is to shoot it and kill it. Now, first of all, if I was an ET, I'd want to keep away from these Earth people because they seem pretty dangerous to me. And if you're an Earth person, then if the President came on TV and said, look, they're perfectly safe, we've received some form of communication with them and our top guys are working on this, etc., I think people would still be very frightened about it. Because, as I say, if you open fire on something like that and that event, say, happened, it does seem, for somebody who is a specialist, who is there drilling these holes, I also find it interesting that they're drilling holes in a government area, or, to create this facility, and the government don't actually know that these ETs are actually down there?
Well, the version I heard was that there was an existing base in New Mexico at Dulce, okay, and there was some kind of conflict, a squabble, where ETs killed some of the American personnel in the base, and there was a stalemate position where there were some ETs there and there were some humans there, and they blocked off an area of this underground base way down on one of the levels, and in order to access that base, they thought, right, well, we'll get to them this way, we'll sink some holes on top of it. So when they contacted Schneider, they just told him, we're going to build another base. So he didn't know why the hole was. He thought they were building a new base, but the actual reason why they were sinking those holes was to get access to this, because allegedly these bases are very, very tightly controlled in terms of, you go in one door and then to get into the next level you have to go through a whole series of security. So the only way to get to it was to drill another hole, and he wasn't a party to that information, and that's when the fight took place. That's one version that I've heard.
And of course, I mean, if you're doing tunnelling underground, you know, as part of the process of preparing for exploding a large cavern to start building the base, etc. I can't think why you'd actually go armed to do something like that when you're only an explosives expert.
Well, I think we said it earlier, didn't we? That this is America, not Britain.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
Well,
80% of Americans probably carry guns.
that may well be true. But you know, when you're working in a government facility and you know you're there to do that job. I mean, you know, probably most of the people who work at the CIA are not armed because they're just sitting at a computer all day.
And much of the information about the Dulce base came from this Thomas Castello character, which nobody's ever met. And it was relayed to John Lear through this Mr. X, and the amount of detail in those papers in terms of the description of the base is phenomenal. And Castello basically said, look, he split all of the information into 6 packs. He gave it to 6 trusted people, and there were photographs in there, videotapes of the base.
Are these ones that are buried on the top of a mountain somewhere?
One of the packs of 6 is buried on top of a mountain
somewhere.
And then Castello allegedly, he then said, well, if I don't contact you over 2 4-month periods, then it means I've been bumped off. Therefore, I want you to publish the contents of these packs. But there are allegedly 6 packs, and none of them have been found.
Right.
And I also read that one of them has actually got one of these alien weapons in it, where you can actually point it at someone and levitate them off the ground.
Right.
It has different modes on it, or you can vaporise them. And one of the packs has got, you know, actual alien technology in it.
Right.
So.
And how did you manage to sneak all this stuff out of a really high security base?
Well, I mean, he was the security. He was the security guard. So I guess if you're the security, then you. He, in fact, I believe he was a technician who worked on the cameras.
Right.
So he was involved in security and moving people around the base. I think he only had access to certain levels. But
did he not mention also that I think it might have been at S4 or Dulce, but at the bottom level is fully controlled by aliens, and that they have some sort of molecular transit system where they can literally jump into it like in Star Trek and come out.
Rooms
and they came out. A general went in and came out in Australia.
Yeah, that was.
And Mars.
Is it Deacon, Henry Deacon?
So like a Stargate type thing.
Yeah, I mean he's fairly recently came out with that claim that there's a gate basically from say S4 to somewhere in
Australia.
In Australia. Yeah.
And of course there are these secret, you know, CIA-run bases and NSA-run bases in Australia. That have also, you know, seen some very unusual events. And witnessed by very credible people.
So the teleportation aspect, that brings us on to theories of the moon and Mars. And John Lear is very famous for examining photographs of the moon, which have been published by NASA, which seem to have bits airbrushed out on them. And I think Richard Hoagland is somebody else who's looked at that. What are your opinion on bases on the moon, Jed?
I've spent a lot of time researching on the internet, and there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of pictures out there, and you can go on and look at them yourselves. And there is definitely lots of anomalies on the moon, what's been blanked out. And you can see why they blanked them out, we don't know. There is a chance that it could be military hardware, couldn't it? They could have put the stuff up there and they just don't want people to see the military hardware. But there's like the Malai Tower and things like that. The possibilities are there. It just means more research, but I think there's definitely something going on in the moon.
Okay. Well, the person who always springs to my mind with this is Carl Wolf, who was in the Disclosure Project, and he just seems like the most honest person in the Disclosure Project.
I mean, but I haven't seen anything. What I try and do is I try and look at these pictures without reading anything first. It's a picture of something on the moon. Can I see it?
Yeah.
If I can see it, then there's clearly something there. But if I'm told where it is with a big yellow dot around it, I think that's trying to influence me.